The reliability of predictions made in the Bible and the reality that they really came to pass can be checked by any high school student with a computer or an encyclopedia. The problem is, it's easier to be a doubting Thomas who never really bothers to check the facts, especially when there are so many frauds out there. In the time we have left, we're going to take a look at just 8 predictions. But as we'll see very shortly, the odds of any man fulfilling even 8 of the 456 predictions about the Messiah are so astronomical that anyone who has fulfilled even 8 of them will be indisputably the predicted Messiah. Here are the 8 predictions.
Number 1, the Messiah would come from Bethlehem. Check. Any casual reader of history or the Bible could tell you that. Number 2, the Messiah will present himself to the people as king by riding into Jerusalem on the foal of a donkey. Check. That exact scene was fulfilled in dramatic fashion on April 6, 32 AD, the day Jesus rode into Jerusalem on the foal of a donkey. Even more amazing is this third prophecy in Daniel chapter 9. Daniel predicts the exact day that Messiah will come. It was so specific that it literally stated it would be 173,880 days after the day the king announced the rebuilding of Jerusalem. And moving forward in time, 173,880 days, you arrive at the only historical scene that would possibly fit the description: the day Jesus rode into Jerusalem. Number 3, check. Number 4, the prophet Zechariah predicts that the Messiah would be betrayed for 30 pieces of silver. Check. 500 years later, Judas Iscariot did exactly that. Number 5, the prophet Zechariah also predicted that the money used to betray Messiah would be thrown back into the temple and refuse to buy a potter's field. Check. That's exactly what happened to the money originally given to Judas. Number 6, Isaiah announced that Messiah would be innocent, accused of a capital crime, and yet he would say nothing in his own defense. Check. That, of course, was fulfilled in the trial and crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Number 7, Isaiah also describes Messiah as an innocent man who would be treated like a common criminal and yet buried in a rich man's tomb. Some 700 years later, Joseph of Arimathea, a local wealthy Jew, provided a new tomb for Jesus' body to be buried in, after he was humiliated and put to death on the cross. Number 7, check. And finally, number 8, Psalm 22 accurately and vividly describes and predicts Messiah's death would be by crucifixion, 700 years before crucifixion was devised as a method of torture and execution. Check.
Now that's just 8 of the 456 prophecies predicted and described in the Bible of impossible to manipulate events in graphic detail. But what do most people today do with this information? Most of them, for starters, aren't even aware of its existence. Many of the others, made cynical by the counterfeits that Satan deliberately uses to distract them from and undermine the genuine, they ignore them and never check the facts for themselves. Others say things like, it's just a coincidence. Well, Professor Emeritus Peter Stoner, Professor of Science at Westmont College, had his graduate students examine and calculate the probabilities of prophecies coming to pass in any one person.
Professor Stoner discovered that for just 8 prophecies to be fulfilled by one person, the odds would be 1 in 10 to the 17th power. 1 with 17 zeros. But unless you're a mathematician, that kind of number doesn't mean very much. How likely is it that something that is 1 in 10 to the 17th power will happen? Here's how often. First, imagine all land on 7 continents covered in white 1.5-inch square tiles. Then paint one tile with a red X on the bottom where it can't be seen. Now, picture a person spending their whole life traveling every inch of the 7 continents. The odds that person would bend down and pick the tile with a red X on the bottom are the same odds of just 8 of the prophecies randomly being fulfilled by any one person. For any one person to fulfill just 11 of the prophecies, the odds are 1 in 10 to the 63rd power, the number of all the electrons in every star, in every planet, in every galaxy, in the entire universe.
There are 456 detailed prophecies that Jesus fulfilled. It's incontrovertible proof positive that God exists, the Bible is His Word, and Jesus is the promised Messiah. You will meet Him someday, either as your Savior or as your Judge.